I'll call this special meeting to order, June 22nd. It's 5:35, and we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tenemos interpretación disponible al español por si alguien gusta escuchar la reunión en español.
We have headsets for hearing impaired if you need them. Board comments and correspondence. Seeing none, let's go to announcements from closed session. We have nothing to report. Public comments, non-agenda matters. I see none. Consent agenda, we have nothing on the consent agenda. Public hearing of the Santa Barbara Unified School District 2015-16 fiscal year budget and components of ending fund balance. Dr. Cash?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This is a required component in the change in the Budget Act, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Jeté, our Chief Business Officer.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. So due to new new regulations, the districts are required to report on the components of ending fund balance in excess of 3%. But before we do that, I would like to go briefly through the general fund that we will discuss in more detail tomorrow night's board meeting. So we're just going to briefly go through this. Unrestricted revenues are about $132 million. Combined is about $145 million. Our expenditures are about $108 million, and our total expenditures are about $138 million. So if we go down a little more, we get to what we feel is the ending fund balance of $12 million. We're estimated ending fund balance for our adopted budget of $12 million. And part of this $12 million has a $6.7 million of one-time funds that we will be talking about a little bit tomorrow. So we're going to go right into the components of ending fund balance. We have to designate our ending fund components of ending fund balance. So of the $12 million, we have to have a 3% reserve, and anything excess of 3% has to be some sort of explanation about why you have it and what you plan to do with it. So with that, Mr. Tedeschi. These are the categories which you've seen in the budget for the past couple of times, and they have certain restrictions on them, and some are more restricted than others. So let's just go right into the explanations of the Fund 1, which is our general fund and our estimated actuals.
Can you go over the definitions of the different options?
Sure.
We just went through those very quickly, and anybody watching it wouldn't have seen them.
Okay. Let me get back to those. So basically, the non-spendable fund balances are that reflects the amounts that are not spendable in spendable form. So those would be more like, oh gosh, I wasn't.
Paper, food.
Well, those usually aren't on there, but they would be like our stores, our prepaid expenditures, things that we really have no other, we can't do anything else with them. We prepaid expenditure, or we have our stores balances in there. Restricted funds are just from the restricted side. They automatically fall in a category of that type, and you can't spend them except by what the government tells you to spend them on. Our committed funds are probably the most restricted, and those are the ones that we have definitely decided that we want to do certain things on, and we put them in those buckets, and that is board approved, goes through all the process. And only, if I remember right, only board can uncommit them. The assigned balance is that someone can designate them, which is what we did, and then the board says, you know, we give you the right to undesignate them and put them somewhere else. So what we did is we put them in assigned because there are certain things that we haven't agreed upon. So I assigned them in hopes that what we feel will help us with our components. So for example, if you go down a little bit further, and then the undesignated is what you're used to as being for this economic uncertainties, or it just falls to ending fund balance, which is like we do whatever we want to do with them. So in Fund 01, we have on our first line for the estimated actuals deferred maintenance, and we're assigning is to set aside $500,000 towards our deferred maintenance plan. We're hoping that our year ends up better than our as it usually does, and we're hoping to have about $500,000 extra that we can put towards our deferred maintenance plan. And we will make that contribution or assignment to that in our next year's budget. So we're hoping to ask you to possibly do that for the year end. And also we feel that we may have we may need to use for $1.5 million to cover any deficit spending we may do in 15-16 for once we start spending that one-time funding, if we do spend it all at one time. For the 15-16 adopted budget, I mentioned before, it's the one-time funds. We're estimating approximately $6.7 million in one-time funds, but the total dollar amounts per ADA have not come out from the state. And so about 200,000 of them, of those funds, we're planning to do some professional development this summer. So we needed to go ahead and already put those in the budget, but that's the only funds that we have designated in that $6.7 million approximately. The other assigned, we've done that, sorry. In our Fund 17, we have in the past that we set aside $100,000 every year to replace our turf fields in San Marcos. If we get more fields, we will need to continue to put money away to replace those in a 10-year period. And we also, every year, we put carts and trucks in there for replacement, the carts at the sites and other facilities, vehicles. And then per board policy 3100, this assignment of $4 million is to serve towards that reserve amount and any other emergencies that the board may feel to use the funds for. So here's like a summary of the components of ending fund balance, and you can see that what I just spoke about is on these designated components, mostly under assigned. But it's the board's discretion that they can put these funds, they can commit them more, or they can leave them there and we can talk about them more throughout the year. So with that, you have any questions?
We're going to bring forward a plan that in relationship to the one-time money. Because it's one time, we want to make sure that we provide the board with multiple opportunities to think as conservatively as possible, because it will be here today and gone tomorrow. We won't be bringing forward any proposal related to ongoing expenditures for one-time money.
Ms. Eidslin?
I have a question just on it came to mind on the turf maintenance. Are you able to like subtract out that you're not mowing a lawn and you're not, I mean, because that's artificial turf, correct?
That's correct.
So all the things that you're not doing because it's artificial turf versus that?
Yeah, this is just our annual 100,000, so we're expecting it to be $1 million project. In 10 years, we'll have the money to replace it.
Okay.
So would you rather have it say artificial turf? Is that what you're saying?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
So it's more clear that what...
On the $6.7 million, is that you say it's a one-time amount of money? Does it have to be spent in the 1 year?
No.
And does it have to be spent on new items, or can it supplant existing things we pay for?
It is totally discretionary. We can do whatever we want with
There's no
it.
suggested categories?
Well, they're talking about Common Core. You know, they'll always say, talk about Common Core.
Yeah, Common Core, Next Generation Science Standards, Professional Learning, Instructional Materials, Technology, Infrastructure for Technology. And it's really designed to reimburse the district for mandated costs, which have not been reimbursed to the district, and there's about 30-some of those, so a lot.
Ms. Limon?
Could it go as far as increasing one-time, without like the expectation that we would have to increase it at that level, but increasing one-time contributions to retirement, our PERS?
Well, that's an ongoing expense.
Right, so if
But
we
you're
wanted to
talking
make-
about your actuarial, our actuarial
Yes,
study
the
of
answer is
14
yes.
million? Absolutely.
Yeah, you bet. Yep.
Thank
Or our deferred maintenance plan?
Yeah, those are the kinds of things you'll see that will make suggestions on where we think it should go.
We'll talk about the budget tomorrow night, but I noticed in the outlying years, there are cuts spelled out.
Yes, and already those were based on, may revise with a very low gap percentage. If you look in we'll go over this tomorrow, but it was like 12% and then 18% for, I believe, 17, 18. But now those are already up to 35% in those out years. And for 15, 16, it went from 53% gap funding to 51 within, the week that we got the budget done.
The weekend.
And explain what that means.
So the gap funding is we have our target amount, and we have our target amount that we're supposed to get to in 2021. And so we have the floor, what they call the floor, and the target. So the in-between part is called our gap funding. So they're funding 53% of that gap funding. That's what's left, because every year the gap funding goes into the floor. So the floor grows and the target gets closer to being reached. So that's what the gap funding is for. So it's a percentage each year of what is the remaining gap. So the gap gets smaller, but the percentage is staying fairly large throughout these next couple years, whereas a week ago it was in the 12%, now it's in the 35%.
One of the other issues will be obviously Prop 30, which is scheduled to sunset in
Right.
2018. So if in fact no other revenue source is identified or approved by the voters, then the sunsetting of Prop 13, which is Prop 30, excuse me,
And parcel taxes.
is anywhere from $80 to $14 billion in 2015. That's a lot of money in revenue that will directly impact the revenue our district gets. And that's why any decisions we make in relationship to the one-time money have to be very carefully thought about.
Well, that's my wondering, if we know that we're going to have to cut $3 million as an estimate in 2 years from now, can we start saving for that eventuality now by spending less?
Yes.
That's what the board can assign, that components of ending fund balance to help relieve that. But as
So
I
we
said.
don't have to have $6.7 million in new programs.
No.
No. We don't want anything ongoing.
We're not going to be recommending ongoing anything except for maybe maintenance.
Well, I'm not even thinking ongoing, it's just, can we not spend it?
Yes.
Figure out a way to
Yes.
not spend it. In other words,
Yes.
any other questions? I look forward to budget tomorrow night.
Okay, well, we'll be here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Were there any public comments on this issue? No. Okay, see you tomorrow night.
Thank
Close
you.
this meeting.